Going back in time 4 years now to 2018, the 2018 San Francisco 49ers NFL Draft, revisiting, regrading all the picks from 2018 coming up right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks for making Locked On 49ers your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We did the 2019 draft regrade on Friday, and that was a lot of fun. And the 49ers have drafted a lot of stars in the last 4 years. And a couple of stars in 2019, another big-time star player in 2018. A really interesting class here with a lot of contributions, though, in 2018. Right, Croc?
Yeah, one thing going through the list, I said, you know what? There's some good football players here.
Yeah, they stole a couple of guys, too. And that's where the 49ers have really hit, is some of those late picks. And the Kittles in 2017 and in 2018. Some really good players. So,
real quick, you talked about Kittle in 2017, and there were some other guys too in that class, and it's weird because guys just aren't there anymore. But maybe they contributed because the team was just bad, the roster was bad. But like Trent Taylor coming in, having like 45 catches as a rookie, and remember he was like the best third down receiver in the NFL. Like on slants, he was like 100%. Ahkello Witherspoon, second half of that season, the way he contributed and how well he played and contributed to some good 49ers football as well. It's been interesting the way things have played out for the long term and kind of who has been able to hold on to a spot and a roster spot with the 49ers and who has gone elsewhere and gotten paid. And that includes one guy from this class.
Yeah, and even guys like Kendrick Bourne, undrafted free agent, would he gotten that shot on a roster that had as much talent as the 2022 roster, Right. And ends up getting paid from another team. It's pretty remarkable. There's a lot more. There was a lot more open spots in 27 and 2018 for guys, for sure. And this was a really fun class too. Not only the way it started, we'll get into the Mike McGlinchey regrade here in a second, the number 9 overall pick in 2018. But this class too has been in the news recently because it was Baker Mayfield at the top. Sam Darnold was the number 3 overall pick. And just talk about how that draft went, because a lot of people killed the New York Giants for drafting Saquon Barkley over Sam Darnold and not taking the quarterback there. And that looks
one of them.
better. It looks better now. But here's what's crazy.
Does it look better though? They both kind of.
Saquon Barkley's been better than Sam Darnold. That's why people think it looks better. But how about this? The Giants still got draft capital, or the Jets still got draft capital back when they shipped off Darnold. And one of those picks ended up being Breece Hall, a second-round pick in this year's draft. So they still got a number 1 running back, probably. We'll see how good Breece Hall is in the NFL. Maybe he's even better than Saquon Barkley. So they got a chance to try for a quarterback. That didn't work out, but they still got a running back afterwards because of the same pick. And so to me, it still doesn't add up. Don't take that top 5 running back. It's really tough for them to give you that value back. And take a shot at a quarterback. Maybe you miss and you get Darnold instead of Josh Allen, but keep swinging.
Ooh, you got to be kicking yourself a little bit, right? Now here's the thing. Here's the tough thing. Mel Kiper said it best. I believe it was Mel Kiper. You have to scout with anticipation. And he was talking about like Justin Fields and some of these guys and how people see things. And you have to project what this guy is going to be in the future. Because at the end of the day, nobody knows. You can feel great about a prospect, and you just literally do not know. And that class is a perfect example of that, because Baker Mayfield, all he did was win at Oklahoma and all this, and he had that charisma. And then you talk about the Sam Darnolds and how people felt about him coming out and how they spoke about Josh Allen from that class, me included. And then a guy who was drafted after that, Josh Rosen, who was supposed to be the most pro-ready quarterback. in that class and how his career has played out. So with a lot of this stuff, you can talk about it. And obviously you hear a lot of this conversation around Trey Lance and what he is and what he isn't. And I wish people just look at the history of these draft classes. You just don't know. You don't know.
The Arizona Cardinals got a second-round pick back for Josh Rosen.
Right.
The Giants can't get a second-round pick for Saquon Barkley right now.
And not only did they get a second-round pick for Josh Rosen, it wasn't even like a shock or surprise. Like, oh, my gosh, they got a second round for Josh Rosen. People were like, oh, yeah, that was a good trade.
Pretty amazing draft there, and lessons to be learned for sure every year. That's why I love the draft, and it's so fun, and there's a million different ways to do it. And sometimes picks that are shockers, you're like, what the hell is this team doing? Turns out great. And sometimes you're like, what the hell is this team doing? And 4 years later, you're like, still, what the hell were they doing? And GMs are getting fired because sometimes it's that obvious. It's crazy.
What the hell were the 49ers doing with drafting Mike McGlinchey over Minkah Fitzpatrick? That was the guy for me. It was Minkah Fitzpatrick all the way. And you and I, we were there together. This is the first time we met. We were there together, and we were doing some draft stuff. We were live. And when it was the commissioner?
Roger Goodell.
I don't know why I wanted to call him Greg Cosell. But when Roger Goodell...
Greg Cosell should be the commissioner. That'd be fun.
I know, right? I love Cosell. He actually follows me on Twitter. Like, kind of made me a fanboy a little bit. But anyways... When Roger Goodell fixed his lips to say, I'm like, oh, they drafted Minkah Fitzpatrick. And he's like, Mike McGlinchey. I'm like, where did this come from?
Yeah, that's right. We were live at Yancey's Saloon with our guy Dylan DeSimone as well, and live streaming the draft during the draft in 2018. That's right. The first time I met Crocky in person. And that was a lot of fun. That was a great night. And we were shocked. And remember, it didn't make sense because the 49ers had a right tackle. That was not on the radar at all. That they took an offensive tackle at number 9 with Joe Staley already in house, and they had Trent Brown on the other side.
One person predicted that like a day or two before the draft. And I'm like, Mike McGlinchey, there's no way they take a tackle. They have Trent Brown.
It's like Peter King or somebody like with inside information, right? Was it Peter King?
Is that what it was?
It was something
I
like
remember
that.
It was like one person, and I had seen it right before the draft. And that was like, there's no way that happens.
And then there were the stories afterwards that the Raiders got sniped and they were going to draft McGlinchey. And so when the Niners took McGlinchey out from under him, they kind of scrambled and they went with the tackle and they went with Colton Miller, right? Is who they took after McGlinchey there a couple weeks later. Or the next
at the time, and even over that first year, and we'll talk about McGlinchey and what he's done, what he is, because I feel like people are all over the place with him. But at that time, he was just far and away the better prospect. And then even after their rookie year, it was, oh my goodness, Colton Miller, he's so bad, and Mike McGlinchey, that's great. What? And 49er fans are like, oh my, I'm so excited that we got McGlinchey as opposed to drafting Colton Miller. And I would say right now, if those two teams had to do this draft again, I think the Raiders would be happier with their pick than the 49ers are with theirs. And that's why sometimes you need to let these things play out a few years.
Yeah, that's why we're waiting 4 years to regrade this thing. And you have to wait a few years. You have to see how things go. What would the 2019 grades have looked like last year if we did it after 2 years? What would we have graded Deebo Samuel versus what we're grading him 12 months later?
Right? He wouldn't be an A+.
That third year is huge. And right. So when we go back and next year look at the 2020 draft, how much different could Brandon Ayuk look if he breaks out this year or something like that? Right. So it takes some time. But I think we have a really good idea of who all these guys were. Some of them no longer with the 49ers, but a lot of contributors rounds 1 through 7 with this class. It started with Mike McGlinchey. It was a shocker to me when it happened. Then, the Thursday night of the draft, they traded away Trent Brown to the Patriots, and then it all started to make sense, and you started to realize how good of a fit Mike McGlinchey was. I thought he was a guy that was a late first-round type of guy. I didn't see him as a top 10 player like you. Minkah Fitzpatrick was the shadow 49ers pick for me, best player available. But Mike McGlinchey, I
thought he was the best defensive player in that draft. To me, that was, they talk about the blue helmet, or what do 49ers call it? The gold helmet?
The gold helmet, yeah.
Like, come on, man. He's gold helmet all the way. Everything about Minkah was A++++, from his personality, from his leadership abilities, with everything you heard. He started all 3 years at Alabama as a true freshman, which doesn't happen very often with them. I mean, his leadership when he was in high school, I mean, everything was off the charts. Playmaking ability was next level. Versatility was next level. I still am a little clearly worked up with that because I don't have a whole lot of like super draft crushes, but for me, it's like that is a great football player. And as we can see what has happened, I know it didn't work out in Miami. He was like, hey, trade me, please. I don't want to go through whatever it is y'all going through. Went to Pittsburgh and has been like multiple time all pro.
Yep. And he just got extremely paid too this offseason, even for a safety. And it's funny because Croc, we all know you love your DBs. And so I'm not surprised you love Minkah Fitzpatrick. I loved him in that class. He's a really clean prospect. But the 49ers don't. Like Jimmy Ward, they've paid. That's about it. They haven't really put much resources into the safety position, which is surprising because the GM is an ex-safety, but they don't value the position. We saw it this offseason. Oh, they're gonna maybe sign somebody, bring somebody back, bring Tart back, draft maybe a day 2 safety. No, they're rolling with the 5th rounder from last year. So it's pretty interesting. They did draft a safety in this class, though. We'll get to later. We'll get to all the grades, including Mike McGlinchey. Coming up next, I do want to let the folks out there know, though, about Bet Online, your number one source for all your betting needs and sports information. Tons of NFL futures, offensive, defensive, rookies of the year. You can start betting. Yeah, they've got odds for, I think, almost every single week of the NFL season out there, too. So you can go Bears 49ers week 1 if you want. Throw some cash down on your 49ers. Bet on them to win the division. Bet on the Niners to win the Super Bowl. All those odds and lines are already up for the 2022 season at Bet Online. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, not just sports betting. Of course, Major League Baseball is about to hit the All-Star break here pretty soon. All-Stars announced. You bet on the All-Star game too at Bet Online. Boxing, MMA, celebrity boxing, live betting, esports, blackjack, poker, Vegas casino games. You can find it all at Bet Online, which remains the best spot for all your not just wagering, but sports scores and news this season. So go to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action at Bet Online, where the game starts. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you're checking out everything else going on in the network, the Peacock and Williamson NFL show daily, and, of course, Croc doing the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. We're talking a little draft today. Mike McGlinchey, though, how would you regrade this pick of Mike McGlinchey? He's been a really good player. I think maybe us included a little bit. You would think, okay, top 10 pick, 9 overall is the sticking point. He's a starting tackle. You know, he's got his strengths and weaknesses. He's a good player. Has he been worth the number 9 overall pick? What would you throw down as a regrade here, looking back 4 years later?
I would say ideally with what he has given you, you might not want to take him at 9, but I would say it's still better value than what a lot of people get with first round picks because half the guys don't even work out. He has been a legit starter. When he's healthy, he has started every game for the 49ers. He's been one of the better run blocking tight tackles in the entire NFL. So at least there's something that he can hang his hat on. Has he whiffed a couple times or got bulldozed a couple times in pass protection? Yes. But I think overall, you are happy with him at your right tackle, and I believe that you can still do a lot worse. So grade-wise, I'd say I give it a solid B because it's not bad, but it's more good than bad. I'd say that.
Right. Yeah, I have to go B minus territory because you're hoping to draft a superstar at number 9. They didn't get a superstar, but they got a really good player. He takes some grief. And this one actually, even after 4 years, it's kind of not done because I think one of the big ones is you want to be able to sign this guy to a future contract, him be worth that money. You're already paying Trent Williams a lot of money after this season, coming off a big injury now too. What's this season going to look like for Mike McGlinchey? Are they going to end up paying him long-term? Are they going to let him walk? And would that affect things? Would it be more of a C-plus grade if McGlinchey's just so-so this year and they end up letting him walk and he didn't even get into a long-term second contract with the team? I think we could even revisit just the McGlinchey pick. I think a lot of these are solidified. But Mike McGlinchey, there's still a little wiggle room in the grade, even after 4 years, I think.
Yeah. You feel better about that pick than you do this next pick.
Yeah, round 2, the 49ers traded up to draft Dante Pettis. And actually, after his rookie season, it looked like the 49ers might have had something, and then it was just off the rails. He went into the Kyle Shanahan doghouse and that was it. And now he's fighting for, bottom of the roster stuff with the New York Giants, right? Is he still on the New York Giants roster? I don't know what happened
I
to
think
him.
he's like on the Bears or something. But listen.
Bears, yeah, you're right.
This is why
you might be wide receiver 2 on the Bears.
I know, right? If he just gets right. Here's the weird thing with draft evaluations. And people are talking about, Kyle Shanahan, he wanted this guy, he traded up for that guy. Their evaluation, their analysis, their evaluation of Dante Pettis was not wrong. Well, they might have missed a key component, and that part was maybe that mental toughness. But aside from that, just talking about like the skills like that you coveted in a football, he had all that. I mean, he was nasty off the line of scrimmage. You weren't touching him. Route running was terrific. He had legit long speed. You won't mistake him for Tyreek Hill or anything like that, but he could run. And I feel like aside from the punt return thing that I think a lot of 49er fans thought they were getting, 49ers probably thought they were getting that aspect of it. You just did not. And he's like the greatest punt returner in college football history.
That was a big one. Yeah, he was like well, if nothing else, at least this guy's going to be like a dynamic returner. And he was a 0 as a returner for the 49ers. That had to disappoint the team. I think that was a big one. Is like, I don't know. That's actually one of the big head scratchers. And you said they got it right. They kind of did. They still overvalued him. I thought there was better wide receivers still on the board at their original spot that they didn't even have to trade up for. And that's not hindsight. The way I liked DJ Chark better. I liked Michael Gallup better. Those guys were still on the board when the 49ers when it got to their original pick. If they didn't trade up at all. And so needing to trade up for Dante Pettis, that was where the big miss was. And it made it worse because now you're spending extra picks on a player who's no longer on your roster and didn't contribute much for you. So it
feels like that's something that they've continued to do, right? Well, real quick, back to him. We talked about his rookie year and he got banged up a little bit, hurt his knee. I thought he tore his whole ACL. He didn't. Somehow he came back and he finished the season extremely strong to the point where most 49er fans, almost like how they've treated Brandon Ayuk, were like, wide receiver 1 heading into this year. He finished strong. Okay, year in the weight room in the NFL, working out, he's grinding, he's doing all these things. He's going to be great. And you just never got that at all, or nothing even remotely close to it. And then you find out he's kind of he doesn't have that dog mentality. He had more of a kitty cat mentality. And he was a guy that loved his cats. And he took that persona onto the actual football field. And that's not going to work with Kyle Shanahan. We've seen that over and over. Kyle Shanahan, that type of guy, 100% every single time is going to clash with Kyle Shanahan, having that mentality, and it just did not work out. And that's why. And then, again, I mean, it hasn't worked anywhere else either. He's shown little flashes here and there, in New York. We'll see what happens with Chicago, but it's up here with him. It's up here.
Yeah, that was the big miss there. And it's funny because I think one of the things they liked about Mike McGlinchey was neck up stuff. They believed in the person. They thought he was going to work, leader, all that stuff, plug and play. But they sort of didn't even evaluate that, I think, with Dante Pettis. So that was an odd one. So Dante Pettis is, I mean, it's an F, it's a D. I mean, with the trade up, with the trade up, it's an F for me.
Yeah. And it's tough. And there's going to be a few of these in here like this where the talent was there. Like, he showed it. It wasn't like, remember like Rashawn Woods or AJ Jenkins. And however they evaluated him, like, it was just never good.
I think AJ Jenkins was not good enough to be drafted where he was. Rashawn Woods was. I think Rashawn Woods, there's some parallels. Rashawn Woods didn't care about football. He wanted to go be a bass fisherman. And I think Rashawn Woods would have been a nice starting, maybe wasn't be a stud number one. He could have been a possession number 2 wide receiver. He was good. He just didn't care about football. He just wanted to go fishing, so he didn't put in the work. And I think there's some similarities there with Dante Pettis in that.
Yeah, well,
Croc,
it's
you
tough though.
A cat guy or a dog guy, Croc?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm from Northside Stockton. Big dog.
Come on. Yeah. Your dog is like smaller than a cat.
Actually, the dog, he actually got killed.
What?
So.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he got hit by a UPS truck.
Oh.
I'm whispering so my wife doesn't hear me because
okay.
She's still hurt.
I did not get the news on that one. That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough. We'll move on there. I'm a cat guy. I'm a cat guy, and I would definitely let the punt drop too. And
yeah. See, so
you weren't a punt returning guy either.
I return punts. I broke my jaw in college returning punts.
Did you? Oh, you didn't cover punts. That's what it was.
No, I sucked at special
Oh,
teams. That's what it was. I just wasn't good.
You just weren't good at it. Oh man, Fred Warner, round 3, A+ all the way, superstar linebacker, goes from playing the star position at BYU, height, weight, speed, and then not only was he a stud outside linebacker, and shout out to my guy John Ledyard, who was the original host actually of Locked On NFL Draft. He was all about Fred Warner, and we had talked about Fred Warner pre-draft on this podcast. And I went back and watched more Fred Warner. I was like, this guy's amazing. Why is nobody talking about Fred Warner? So I was super excited when the 49ers drafted Fred Warner in the 3rd round. But I thought he was going to be the outside linebacker to Reuben Foster playing inside. And they said, no, day 1, green dot on your helmet, Fred Warner starting inside middle linebacker. I didn't see that coming. So he even, blew away my expectations. And he's been, everything you could ask for in a linebacker and a leader for the 49ers defense. It's an easy A for a 3rd round all-pro Fred.
So you can't hit on everyone, but so far you got a solid B. I know you said maybe B-, but solid B with McGlinchey, a guy who has been a starter every year, anytime he's healthy. And then you go Dante Pettis. Okay, you whiffed on that. But then Fred Warner, you come back and you're getting the A+ with what he is, all-pro Fred. So far so good with this draft class.
Yeah, if you drafted Fred Warner in the 1st round, Mike McGlinchey in the 2nd round, and Dante Pettis in the 3rd round, you're like, yeah, cool. That's how it's supposed to look. So they got their star, they got their 1st round value, they got their 2nd round talent, and I think they found some 3rd, 4th round talent in this draft class as well. When we come back, we'll finish it up. We'll talk about the rest of the 3rd round on through round 7, a couple of 7-rounders, including a longtime favorite of the Locked On 49ers podcast. But I got to let the folks out there know about our friends at Rock Auto, a family-owned business that's been helping do-it-yourselfers fix their cars and trucks for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are always reliably low for every customer. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, if you're a professional, you're probably all about Rock Auto and got them dropping off parts for you all the time. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. When you're going to a local chain store or car dealership, you're spending 50% markup, 100% markup for the same parts versus the price you could get them at rockauto.com. And it's really impossible for your local chain store to have everything you need in stock, right? And you don't even know what they're looking at when you're looking for a part and they're looking on their screen and you don't see what it is. They carry maybe one brand or something. Rockauto.com has everything, an absurd selection at rockauto.com. Go see for yourself what parts are available for your specific car or truck at Rock Auto and discover all the ways you can fix up your vehicle. And we're talking big parts, small parts, brake parts, brake lamps, tail lamps, wiper blades is something I've bought from rockauto.com, right? How about a fuel pump? Need a fuel pump for a Honda Odyssey? $350 at your chain store, only $215 from rockauto.com. So go to rockauto.com right now, see all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car or truck would ever need at rockauto.com. Okay, Croc, they finished up round 3 with Tarvarius Moore, who's been a player that has been injured quite a bit, and they weren't sure if they wanted him to play safety as he did in college. He was playing that sort of cover 4 almost every single down. He was kind of hard prospect to scout, really, and he was not on my radar at all on draft day. I remember when he was selected, you and I looked at each other. We're doing a live stream about the draft, and in the 3rd round, we're already like, I got nothing on this guy. I don't know who Tarvarius Moore is. I didn't watch him. And the Niners saw his height, weight, speed numbers. He's a 4'3" guy. He's got some length. They want him to play that cover 3 corner. Didn't really stick there. Moved him back to safety. I'm still not sure what the 49ers have in Tarvarius Moore here after a lost season due to injury, but it's looking like he'll probably back up Jimmy Ward at free safety this year.
They drafted him to play cornerback, and it was very clear to me right away. Maybe this was a Jeff Hafley pick, or I don't even know who the cornerback coach was at this time, but I said, that guy doesn't move like a corner. And cornerbacks move a certain way. Safeties a lot of times move a certain way. Sometimes you'll get a safety who can move like a cornerback, like a Minka Fitzpatrick, or like guys like Daxton Hill, who was just drafted to the Cincinnati Bengals in this last class. Well, Tarvarius Moore moved like a safety. And I'm like, what are they doing here with this guy? And clearly it just did not work out at all at the cornerback position. just a little too slow-footed for me. Now, again, you see the height, weight, speed, the measurables, things like that. It just didn't quite pan out at the cornerback position. Can it pan out at the safety position? We just still don't know. He has been more of a reserve, which, of course, you have Jimmy Ward, you have Jaquaski Tart, those guys, and whoever else they've had at safety. But it's been hard to kind of find his niche. He did have an interception in the Super Bowl. I believe that was off of a PBU by Jaquaski Tart. They were using some kind of 3 safety type looks, and he was in there doing his thing. But a lot of people are kind of banking on him to have a big year this year or be able to compete with Hufanga. I haven't even heard anything. I haven't even heard his name. Have you heard Tarvarius Moore's name this offseason?
I haven't heard anything because at least we got like the weird photograph where Mike McGlinchey looked like he was only 260 pounds, right? So there was some talk about his recovery from injury. There's been almost no news about Tarvarius Moore. I don't know if he's been participating in any of the stuff. We got to get to the bottom of that one, because he lost the entire season. He's got to get back on track here to be ready for training camp to earn a roster spot because he's a bubble player for the roster, but they're so thin at safety. I think he's got a good shot to make it. But if they had drafted a safety high, I'd probably be projecting Tarvarius Moore to not even make the team. Like that's how little he's produced.
Let me make sure that guy's in this draft class. Let's see. I think he is. Let's see. So there's definitely another safety who you got much more out of, and that is, excuse me, my bad, Marcel Harris. So
Marcel Harris,
yeah. So we got to go when it comes to Moore. I don't know. I mean, you haven't gotten much out of him. You still don't know what he is. It's been several years later. He's played multiple positions. Don't know. I'd say this is a D+ at best.
Yeah, and it's sort of overthinking it. They bet on the athleticism and thought they could make a player out of him just because of his height, weight, speed numbers, and it hasn't produced yet. I think he could be a solid, backup safety and, gunner on special teams, but how they thought he was going to be a corner and he's that long strider, didn't have that short area foot quickness that you see in a corner. So that was a big miss, obviously thinking that he was going to be a corner and then, still has range at safety, but, not a starting caliber safety. So yeah, in the third round, it was late third round, 95 overall. So not a premium pick necessarily, but a top 100 player you would have wanted to contribute more. And I guess we could go all the way down to Marcel Harris, the 6th round safety for the 49ers. Marcel Harris has played. He was hurt when they drafted him. He was like a stash player, and he still played more games in the NFL than Tarvarius Moore has.
And made impact plays. I mean, there was a stretch where felt like he was forcing a takeaway in every game that he was starting, whether it was an interception or a forced fumble. Like he was coming in and he was making plays. And then he was versatile. All right, we could play him at safety. They moved him to linebacker. He was able to play there. He's a weird one because I feel like the more he had to think out in space, the more it hurt him. Like when he was just kind of in man or match cover 4 and he was really good. Like his coverage skills, a lot of people knocked him for his coverage skills, but man, I watched him on film and I saw some really good stuff from him, really good. And I'm like, man, this guy looks like he could be a starter. Like from his playmaking, but then he play in the box and you see him knifing in there, making tackles at the line of scrimmage or tackles for losses. You see the area he was able, and I'm like, man, he could play in the box, he could play safety, but he would get a little lost the further he was out there. And I feel like the more he had to think. So they moved him to linebacker. And even then, we saw him get an interception there. That was good. That's a good. They won with that one, with where he was drafted, how he was drafted with the ruptured Achilles, and to be able to, just have some type of impact, whether it's on the field, where there's special teams. I'd say that has to be a B- for where he was drafted.
Yeah, I mean, that for a 6th rounder, he's contributed, played 52 games for the 49ers. Robert Saleh liked him enough because now he's playing linebacker for the New York Jets, trying to compete there for that roster. So, yeah, Marcel Harris was a pretty good pick for a 6th rounder, and you're weighting this based on where they were selected. Marcel Harris definitely a better pick than Tarvarius Moore at the same position. So, and really that was the theme of this draft was those sort of stash players. The 4th rounder, Kentavious Street, injury. Julian Taylor, the 7th rounder, tons of injuries in his career. So they drafted 4, and they had extra picks in the 3rd, extra pick in the 7th. So they had, 2 extra picks to play with. They had 9 selections, but almost half of them, 4 of them were almost like these stash players. And we've seen them about face recently because they've drafted too many injured guys and it's hurt them. And they've, even some of the healthy guys that they've drafted have become injured and they've realized that they just can't outthink themselves in that way. And if you're looking at the 4th rounder, Kentavious Street, I didn't think coming off I think it was a weightlifting injury, right? Was it a torn bicep or a torn pec? Is that what?
I believe it was an Achilles, right? No.
I think that. And then he had more injuries once he got into the NFL. But Kentavious Street, I didn't
ACL.
It was ACL pre-draft?
Pre-draft workout.
Okay. I didn't love Kentavious Street. I thought 4th round wasn't a good enough discount. I thought he's a 4th round guy anyway, and then discounted into the 5th, 6th, 7th round area. Then you take him. But I thought 4th was still too high for a guy based on a torn ACL, and I just didn't see the production. He was just a little bit sluggish. He's a strong guy, weight room strength. He put up like crazy, record numbers in the North Carolina State weightlifting program, but I didn't see the quick twitch movements. In a lot of ways, it's similar to how I feel about Javon Kinlaw, who's big and strong, but I think Kinlaw's got a little bit more quick twitch to him sometimes, but sometimes it takes a little gather and it's a long explosive motion rather than, when you see Nick Bosa's like, it springs out of his stance. It's like boom, boom, hand. You didn't see that from Kentavious Street on the inside. So he's almost like had to overpower you. And then he was kind of a tweener, played a little end 5 tech, and then defensive tackle. So
I would listed at 6'2", 280.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, tweener player. Height weight is kind of similar to Solomon Thomas, who they missed on, who's also a tweener guy. So they were looking for that body type, and maybe they shouldn't have been. And he was an all right player. He was a reserve, but only played 35 games, which is only 2 more games than Dante Pettis played for the 49ers because of all the injuries, even though he spent an extra year on the roster. So Kentavious Street, not a great pick. It's a 4th round pick, but I'd probably give Kentavious Street a D because they drafted a guy with a torn ACL and they didn't get enough of a discount, in my opinion.
Right, I agree. Now let's talk about this next guy.
Oh, this is a good one, DJ Reed, because they got it right and they still missed because they tried to sneak him onto waivers and the Seattle Seahawks took him away. Now he's starting for your bitter rival. So they got it right in the draft. So we can't knock the draft pick. We can knock the roster politics later, right? And how the roster was constructed post draft. But as far as the draft pick, this is a good pick, DJ Reed.
This was a good pick. First of all, he's not on the Seahawks anymore. He's on New York Jets, signed for $33 million.
So we got 2 Jets we're talking about from these Jets. Wait, where did Street go? Did Street go to the Jets too?
He might be. I'll try to look it up. But
hold on, I'll look it up right now. Continue.
But
Miami.
DJ Reed,
Saints.
33.
Street's on the Saints. Yeah.
All right, Reed, $33 million contract. So you're doing something right? You see a guy get his second contract with that amount of dollars. The 49ers drafted him, and I spoke with him about this. I actually had him on my YouTube channel, got to interview him and whatnot. And he's like, dude, like they came in asking me to play these different positions. Like, dude, I ain't never played this. I've never played in the slot. I never played safety. I was a cornerback. And they drafted him and had him cross-training at 2 positions he had never played before. So that's difficult. And he's like, man, now I'm responsible for getting guys set up and knowing this and knowing that. And it was a lot for him. And it didn't allow him to just go out there and play. And I think because of his height or lack thereof, a lot of people are probably thinking, oh, no, he's a slot. He's this and that. He's like, I'm an outside guy. So he went to Seattle when the 49ers kind of botched that whole thing. And I do feel like they liked him, but it just, I don't think they thought somebody would get him. And then he was able to recover faster than he even expected from the pec. And he got to play. And he played well, and they played him at outside cornerback, and he came in, he picked off the 49ers. I believe that might have been his first game back. So exciting stuff, and then to continue on and earn a contract with the Jets. Oh, on top of that, I didn't even talk about his special teams, and that might be something that would intrigue the 49ers, along with Dante Pettis from this class. They were like the 2 best returners in this entire class. 49ers got both of them. He returned one for a touchdown. I believe it was against the Detroit Lions. Week 2 of his rookie year, but he was a guy I like, and it sucks how they kind of let him go, but it's great to see him continuing to his NFL career elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's probably the best thing for him because he got to play one position that he was comfortable with, and he ended up flourishing there with another team. He might not have got that shot, and clearly the Niners didn't treat him like a starting caliber player with how he ended up on the Seattle Seahawks roster. But it's interesting. They drafted a safety, tried to make him a corner in the 3rd round, drafted a corner, tried to make him a safety or a nickel in the 5th round there, and neither one of them quite went right. And they should have just left them at what position they were. How about 7th round? Oh, what was the grade? What would you put on that grade?
Oh, man, that's got to be a B+. That's,
B+?
Well,
okay.
Yeah. I think I'm giving them a B+ based on overall what he has done, as opposed to what he did with the 49ers.
They drafted a 5th round guy who ended up being a starting corner. It's a good pick.
Who ended up getting paid $33 million elsewhere.
Yeah. How about Julian Taylor in the 7th round? Not a great pick because he never did much. He played the least amount of any draft pick in this class. He played 12 games for the 49ers. But, man, when you saw him like in the preseason, it's like, man, I see what they liked about him, and they took a shot on a 7th rounder. I have no problem with it. I like the Julian Taylor pick, even though he didn't turn out, way more than I like the Contavious Street pick. Because if you're going to draft based on talent and you're going to get the discount, give me a 7th round player that could be something. And he was kind of a beast. It just never was going to work out for him, and, more injuries. And so, but Julian Taylor had some talent coming out of Temple. Just, you take a swing and it doesn't work. I have no problem with that with the 7th rounder, 223 overall. Still not a high grade.
Yeah, fine. You take a swing. A lot of hype. There were a lot of 49er fans, if I remember correctly, they were all in on Taylor.
Yeah.
And he came in and he was wearing like number 77. I was like, it's not going to work.
Yeah, the number was bad. And Croc knew that was not going to end well when he rolled up with 77. I kind of like it. I think 77 is intimidating. Better for an offensive tackle than a defensive.
Yeah.
And Richie James. He's been one of my favorite players for the 49ers since they drafted him. He was a guest that summer after they drafted him, actually, right here on Locked On 49ers. I had fun talking with Richie James. Had some energy. Loved the backflip after the 49ers win when he was the extra man. Gave them some big-time returns a few times. I thought he could have given them some more on the offensive side of the ball, but he kind of was behind Trent Taylor, behind Kendrick Bourne, showing up a year later. Never really got much of an opportunity, then had a couple injuries. Then I think the Super Bowl might have gotten his head a little bit because his career at the Niners just kind of started to disappear after that. But Richie James played 40 games for the Niners. He ended up being the best returner in the class for him, really, right?
I believe his rookie year,
DJ Reed.
His rookie year, he actually had like a terrific preseason. I'm like, man, like this is like good production for a smaller guy, but a late round pick. And then he went into the season, and I just feel like he just never got an opportunity for whatever reason. And I'll never know why. But when you just talk about ability, again, this is another guy who I felt like the 49ers got the evaluation right on his capabilities. 9 receptions for 130 yards, 14 yards per reception as a rookie. Second year, he had, where's it at? I lost it. Oh, here we go. 6 catches for 165 yards. And he averaged, where's it at? Gosh, why this thing keeps moving on me? But anyways,
there was the one game, I think it was his second year. There was the game where there was a game time. Was it Debo got hurt? Or was it Ayuk's rookie year?
Oh, so maybe that's factoring into his. No, that was 2020. So 2020, he had almost 400 yards because Ayuk, Debo, and Kendrick Bourne all had to sit because of COVID against the Green Bay Packers. And he had a game for like 9 receptions, 180 yards.
Yeah,
Here's my thing with that.
Career, he got featured and he went off. It was like, use this guy more.
Use him more. And I saw it the whole time. I just thought his usage was way down. And I think when you look at his numbers, again, rookie year, caught 9 receptions on 14 targets. Second year, 6 receptions on 10 targets. And he averaged 27 yards per reception that year. And then, what he did in 2020. And then now all of a sudden he's just nowhere to be found. Like, where is he? Or I don't even know. So it's really weird with the roster politics of things. And you've heard some of his teammates vouch for him. Richard Sherman vouched for him, a bunch of other guys as well. I had a video that I recorded on the sideline at training camp, which went viral, and every once in a while I still see that video circulating. And it just shows his ability of like route running, twitch, catch the ball, but opportunity for whatever reason. I don't know why he didn't get that opportunity. Maybe there's something that he's not taking advantage of in practice, but I felt like whenever he did get an opportunity, he definitely made the best of it. Except for a punt return, he actually
took Dante Pettis' job on the New York Giants. He got signed by the New York Giants.
Okay,
yeah, so that's where he's. Okay. So we'll see if Richie James can make good. He was a favorite of the podcast, and I like to pick in the 7th round to play 40 games and score touchdowns and make somewhat of an impact for a 7th round player. It's a great pick. So I'd go B+ on the Richie James selection.
I'll say solid B.
Okay. I'm gonna give the plus in there because he's my dude.
Yeah.
Overall, it was a great draft class. You got a star player, got some solid contributors, got some role players in this class. I think they left some meat on the bone, got a little bit too cute, I think, with some of the selections with injured players and thinking they were maybe outsmarting the league, and it kind of came back to bite them. And then the trade up for Dante Pettis was unnecessary, and they ended up passing on some other better wide receivers that could have helped this team out. But overall, multiple starters in this draft and a star player in Fred Warner. So a good class, solid draft class. I'm going to go overall grade B. Solid B?
Yeah. I said B+. Okay. Because you got an all-pro player, and you got a really good player, or a good player, that's a legit starter, and then you got a bunch of other guys that really contributed. And in some years where you kind of needed that, especially 2019. Most of these guys contributed 2019.
Did we give the 2019 class an A?
I don't know if we did it overall. But yeah, when you have Bosa and Debo, it's like A.
I feel like we gave that class a B+. If so, that's an A class because this is a B+ class. And that's Bosa, Debo. That's a better class just with those two guys.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. Going down memory lane, revisiting the 2018 draft and some stuff unwritten. We'll see if Tarvarius Moore and Mike McGlinchey can make us rethink this class. Maybe there's even a better grade to be out there if you look back on it in 5 years instead of 4 years. All right, good stuff. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen. Croc and I back tomorrow. Make sure you're checking out everything else going on the Locked On Podcast Network, including the Peacock and Williamson NFL show and the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Back tomorrow. Talk to you then right here. Locked On 49ers.